Mustard is one of the most recognizable sauces in the world. Its taste is sharp, intense, and impossible to confuse with anything else. People use mustard every day, on sandwiches, with meat, in sauces, and marinades. A small amount is enough to change the entire flavor of a dish. When we look at mustard, it seems simple. Thick, yellow, smooth. We squeeze it from the bottle or scoop it with a spoon without ever thinking about what it is made of. But mustard is not just a taste. It is crushed seeds, liquids, spices, and reactions combined together. Everything is blended so well that our eyes see only one uniform surface. But the microscope sees something else. In this video, I take ordinary mustard, the same kind people use every day, and place a tiny amount under the microscope. At first glance, nothing seems unusual. It looks exactly how we expect it to look. But as magnification increases, the familiar begins to disappear. Hidden structures start to appear, revealing a world we never notice. What feels simple on the plate may be far more complex when viewed up close. At 80 times magnification, the mustard sample appears as a thick and uneven layer spread across the slide. The surface looks dense and compact, with large dark regions dominating the field of view. The familiar smooth appearance of mustard disappears almost immediately. Instead, the texture appears rough, broken, and irregular. Wide areas of muted yellow and brown tones are visible throughout the sample. These regions come from crushed mustard seeds that were pressed flat during preparation. The color is not uniform. Some areas appear darker and heavier, while others look lighter and more translucent. The edges of the mustard are uneven and organic. They curve, bend, and taper off, rather than forming sharp lines. This suggests how the paste flows slowly and settles when spread. Clearer zones appear between denser regions. These lighter areas indicate liquid components distributed throughout the mixture. Small rounded voids are scattered across the background. They vary in size and appear randomly placed. The structure already feels layered rather than smooth. At this level, mustard no longer looks like a simple sauce. It begins to resemble a thick mixture built from many blended elements. This first magnification gives a general impression of mustard as dense but unstable. At 200 times magnification, the internal organization of mustard becomes more apparent. The sample no longer looks continuous. Large fragments now reveal clear boundaries and internal texture. Different regions show noticeable differences in density and transparency. Some areas appear tightly packed and heavy. Others look softer and more fluid. This contrast creates a layered visual effect across the slide. Small rounded formations become clearly visible throughout the field of view. They vary in size and appear suspended within the surrounding material. Some cluster together while others remain isolated. Their uneven distribution adds depth and complexity to the image. The background looks finely granular. Countless tiny particles fill the space between larger structures. Thin borders and subtle lines run between regions. They separate components that did not fully blend at a microscopic level. The structure feels organized rather than random. At this magnification, mustard begins to look like a controlled mixture. At 800 times magnification, mustard transforms into a detailed microscopic landscape. The field of view fills with tightly packed structures and strong contrasts. The image becomes busy and visually dense. Large clusters dominate the scene. They appear compressed and heavily compacted. The boundaries between these clusters are clearly defined. Their edges form irregular shapes that interlock with one another. Between the dense clusters, fine granular material spreads across the background. This material fills every available space. It creates a textured environment that feels layered and dynamic. Some structures appear fractured or partially collapsed. This reflects the intense grinding and processing of mustard seeds. Despite this, remnants of the original plant structure remain visible. The sauce no longer appears continuous at all. It looks fragmented and complex. At this scale, mustard no longer resembles food. It begins to look like a microscopic construction made from organic material. This magnification reveals how texture and thickness are built from countless small components. At 2,000 times magnification, mustard becomes almost completely abstract. Nothing in the image resembles a sauce anymore. The familiar idea of mustard disappears entirely. Individual structures are now sharply defined. Thin walls, irregular fragments, and tiny particles fill the frame. Some areas appear tightly organized and compact. Others look chaotic and broken apart. The background is crowded with microscopic debris. Very little empty space remains visible. Every part of the image is filled with detail. Rounded particles gather along sharper edges. They follow contours and collect in specific regions. This repetition creates subtle patterns across the field of view. At this level, mustard looks less like food and more like a microscopic system. A system formed from seeds, liquid, processing, and chemistry. This hidden world exists inside something people use every day, yet it is never seen. Looking this closely changes how familiar food feels. If this microscopic view surprised you, leave a comment with what you want to see next, and follow the channel to continue exploring what hides beneath the surface.